What's on your mind today, Scott?
Well, yeah, good question. I think, it's interesting. What comes to mind is just here we are 10 years later after a business relationship and all the exciting things we've gone through. We've gone through some, um, interesting is probably the politically correct word to say it, just through our real estate career. And we've supported each other over the years going through some of those things. And there's gratitude just in our relationship.
Yeah, well, it is interesting, and I appreciate us kicking our conversation off with that one because it's been a rewarding 10 years in many different ways. And I think if I reflect on some of it, I come to understand how important it is to, have work in a team, to be honest. As a new agent, kind of later in my career, I really appreciated kind of that expertise that you had. I brought a certain level of different experience to the team.
You had helped me through some coaching and introduced me and supported me even before you were in the real estate business. And perhaps there was even an interest you shared with me when we first talked. If you put the bug in my ear, hey, I might be thinking about, a transition in my own career. Um, you coming from being a professor at VIU, and that was an honor for me for even to think about that way back 10 plus years ago. And here we are. I think we start our days out almost like this every day. Real estate can be a lonely business, doing it yourself. Sure, we're with a lot of people throughout the day. It's a relationship business, um, but where we can connect in the profession is very helpful.
Yeah. Well, again, reflecting on the 10 years and how we were introduced is interesting because I feel that it's important for people to understand that, a connection made, you never know where it will take you. And that's been maybe one of the most rewarding things for me in my 10 years as a realtor. And even before that is relationships that are created, from one connection led to something else. If you just sort of take the steps, the path will appear kind of thing. It's a network. And here we are 10 years later, sort of reflecting on some of the why and how. And I agree with you. It can be lonely out there as a realtor. And I think in anything, to be honest. But as a realtor, you see all these independent realtors that are, quote, visibly successful, but behind the scenes, they're struggling because they don't have what we have and had. And that's that connection. And in the mornings, just sort of sharing on a deal or sharing what's happening in our personal lives. Again, I cherish those moments. Always something to look forward to, kind of checking in. And yeah, so that connection, very, very important.
That's, yeah, good point. You bring up the connection, not just with ourselves, but it's just your integration with the community. I know your enjoyment in this business is the able to integrate the work with the community as well. And over the years, I hope that I've supported you in what you want to do in the community. Um, so that's been a neat purpose, and there, um, just naturally those connections and business comes from that. The people that you work with in community are the same people that you enjoy serving in the real estate life. They're moving in, and that's a big community resource, and we're helping the community move forward in some projects.
Transitioning into this business, I wanted to maintain my community connections and grow them. And I feel as a realtor, we had that opportunity, and it wasn't about gaining a client necessarily. That happened for sure, but it was finding a different way to serve the community. And I think, again, one of our values and team values was building community. Yeah, it might be about selling real estate, but the bigger picture is building the community. This role has given me the opportunity to support it 100%, just to be active in the community, whether it's through Rotary, whether it's through being on a board, whether it's attending a fundraising event. That's been a big part of my enjoyment, as being a realtor, is to be able to do that and give back in different ways, whether it's a small donation or volunteering or just participating or, like I say, being on a board. Very, very rewarding for me. And I really appreciate your support and your involvement in that.
Credit. I know you're not the person who wants credit. Every time the spotlight shines on you, you turn it to somebody else, which is pretty neat. And I respect that as well. I I still think the neatest thing is, it took me probably a few years to realize this school that you had in Africa named after yourself was a big school, with 2,000 plus students. I thought, yeah, I just had a different perception, but it took you years just to share that about yourself. And I want to give you credit for that, just in your ambition and your heart, where you serve people and serve communities.
Well, I appreciate that. And yeah, I am going to turn it around because I can't do it without support of others. Yeah, you have the opportunity. So I encourage more realtors to take that step. I mean, join that organization, get involved with attending an event, a special event.
And what it's fair to say, new realtors coming in, just the social integration. Um, you know, I heard the word corporate halo, and that's a little bit, I have mixed feelings about that, but it's a good thing to be ingrained in the community, to doing it from your heart. That's important, rather than, okay, I'm going to go out here just to hopefully get business. But we live and play in the place we live. Why not make it a better place, right?
Why wouldn't we want to live in a better place? It's our
Yeah.
business, really. It's our business. I do think sometimes, and I taught a course called Corporate Social Responsibility at Vancouver Island University, and there was that, I guess, question about why are you doing it? What is the corporation's responsibility? And yeah, it's to give to the community. It is, but what is the intention behind it? And you say, give from the heart as opposed to, I'm getting involved because I want to get a deal or something.
Yeah.
I think the intention is very important. And again, we've been able to kind of enter into it with good intention, and we're rewarded with that because not
Yeah.
only are we making it a better community, but sometimes business comes from that. So,
Sure. Yeah, a little bit of an offshoot just from the good things that are done. Started in 2003, and the shift in the business, here we are on a video call, which came to light, I think, more and more in during the COVID time, where this was more natural. But what have you seen the difference in the last 10 years that you've been in the business?
it's interesting. I mean, the market does shift, and it's just recognizing it's going to shift no matter what.
Yeah.
I entered into the business in 2016 and kind of rode a bit of a high. Uh, I got involved when things were moving fairly quickly and easily. And I thought, oh, this is kind of good. Didn't mean you didn't have to do the work in terms of, building relationships, following up with leads,
Yeah.
all the work that needs to be done. That was always there and it will always be there. So the basics of real estate, which I feel I, had to learn along the way, but got a good introduction and support from you on some of the basics. But recently, we talk about markets changing from a seller's market to a buyer's market to a balanced market. And that's what I came to understand is sometimes it shifts a little bit towards one or the other. But
Hmm.
the reality is there's always buyers, there's always sellers, and the market is good for both depending on your circumstances. And that's what we like to highlight is what are your needs? Is this the time for you to buy? It could be, or would you prefer, to wait 6 months because you want to time it differently? Or do you have to sell your house first before you buy? All those things are under considerations. But yeah, over the years, well, you've had more years and have seen different markets, and you're the one that's told me, yeah, Ken, this is more of a normal market. And I'm going, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I think as we shifted from the COVID years, and for a realtor, it was actually quite easy. And COVID aside, I enjoyed that time because there was intention with purchasers, there's intention with sellers. It wasn't about, let's just see what we get. And there was some, I don't want to say motivation, but if you were selling or buying during that period, there was purpose to it. And unfortunately, during that period, I call that emotional buying. People
Hmm.
would not buy with their heads. They'd buy with their hearts. I want the market will always go up. And we've seen that not to be true, since probably about March of 2022, when prices did drop, even locally here in Nanaimo. Um, and realtors who weren't seasoned, what happened? They weren't used to dealing with objections or working on strategies just to overcome some of these things. Um, we look at a buyer today, and there's some natural hesitation where we've seen people go back and, oh, these small things, there's just a reason for them not to to move forward. And I think it's handling objections in a healthy way, of course, where we're not trying to push somebody into what they don't want, but going over the situation again. Um, you know, houses are maintenance properties, or excuse me, houses are maintenance items. So commonly we're going to have to do that. If you own a house brand new in a couple of years, you're going to have to fix a leaky toilet or something. That's not the end of the world. That's just home ownership. And so, when we go through inspections, just going back to what the main objective is, this is the right neighborhood. This is in the price range that we're looking for. It's got the bedroom for your kids. It's got the backyard where the dogs are going to play. And that's not to be a salesperson, but that's just to enlighten the situation rather than, what, I'll be dramatic, there's a leak in the roof. But how do we fix that? Is it getting the roofer, getting a quote, negotiating with the other party on some compensation or them fixing it rather than, oh no, there's a hole in the roof. And I'm using a very dramatic thing. It is a big deal, but how do we handle those objections? And I think that's where me and you, and we're tooting our own horn here, but where we can come with solutions and actually get to the heart of the matter rather than being responsive. And we want to hear our client, but we want to direct them into solutions that are to their benefit, or at least give them the opportunity to consider that and then make their own choices moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of our main roles is to help them get the information they need to make the best decision for them. What comes to mind when you talk about this is objections, and often buyers will object to a strata fee, and I
Hmm.
always enjoy that one because we're trying to get them information to help them understand this strata fee is actually a good thing. And I've even come up with that notion of a property equity fund
Hmm.
where if you own a home, you pay yourself your own fee. It's called a property equity fund. You should consider putting away $500, $400 a month for 5 years or 10 years, because then you can pay for the renovations. Then you can pay for the new roof that you'll need, the new painting you'll need outside, the new fixtures, the plumbing, and you don't have to remortgage like I had to do when I did my upgrades and remediate renovations. I didn't understand that. Yeah, pay myself first, pay my strata fee first, and then feel comfortable when the time comes to fix that roof that is leaking because it's going
Yeah.
to eventually need to be replaced.
Prices will go up and down, but historically over time, prices do eventually go up.
Over time, will definitely appreciate. So, will it appreciate as fast as you want? Will it always go up? No. And we're experiencing that a little bit right now where people have to sell and they've only been in the property for 2 or 3 years or even 5 years. In this market, that is not enough time for your investment to have increased, especially in the shift in markets. So, I mean, we can help you understand that, but you're right in saying this investment uh, requires, I think, just time and also
Yeah,
attention. So time and attention.
sure. And there's another kind of level of that too. In the situation, people always think, okay, I bought for 800, I've got to sell for 750. The next step in the consideration is, what are you planning on purchasing? So hopefully there's a little strategy that somebody uses with your realtor and looking at market segments, because we can think of all different market segments, in Nanaimo, or if you look at Parksville, Qualicum, different areas throughout the island. There are shifts in in each of those market segments, whether there's, right now there's a surplus of condos. And so I think it'd be an opportunity to buy a condo for somebody if they're thinking of a long-term strategy,
Mhm.
but again, that's all content that's worth further discussion, and it's so dependent on somebody's personal situation, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the individual nature of this business is very important, and what's right for somebody is not right for another person. And that property that appears to be a solid value deal isn't right for some people, but for other
Hmm.
people it is. And I think what our value is to make sure we're trying to find the right place for the right person or sell a property is, for the right price, for the
Yeah.
right reason. So,
We get a lot of people coming from out of town asking questions about the area. A good, well, not analogy, but here's a situation where me and you live in totally separate parts of the town. I'm in North Nanaimo. close to the office, and you're downtown, close to the old city, and there's almost two different lifestyles, isn't there? Um, North Nanaimo, my priority, having young kids, being close to some schooling. Not that that's not in the old city, but I think maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, and I know you're going to share, but maybe more a dynamic lifestyle where you're on the waterfront, you've got restaurants, you've got places to party on Friday night, Ken.
Yeah, that's me. Well, I think again, that's an individual thing and life stage thing. For us. We started our paths up in North Nanaimo with a young family.
Mhm.
We grew into our property because we had an unfinished basement. The kids were young as they grew up. That's when I had to remortgage to actually finish my basement. But it was what we needed at the time and very rewarding for us. We could walk to the school, the neighborhood. We got to know everybody. It was just the right place to be for us at that time. Later on, as empty nesters, we realized that, maybe we want a different type of lifestyle. And so we chose the townhouse living downtown. And yeah, totally different vibe. We're, on the waterfront. We can walk down for our groceries, down to the clubs, as Scott says. Then we don't have to drive, but some restaurants and stuff. So yeah, it depends on your needs. And so when we're getting out of town buyers, one of my favorite things to do is give them a quick tour of the city and answer their questions. And that's sort of, asking them questions and answering questions.
Yeah.
What's important to you? Walkability, uh, particular, you want near the big box stores. Uh, so all those conversations are very important, and touring neighborhoods, I think, is also important. Uh,
Yeah, there is lots of different neighborhoods in town, although we're so close. I always joke, if you wait longer than one red light at a stop, there's probably an accident or something happening in the community, because I'll have friends and clients come from different communities, and they'll say actually how easy it is to get around if you've got a car. Um, I,
yeah,
I know that sounds awful, but having a car here, because our city is generally long and skinny, isn't it? One part hits the water and then another part hits Mount Benson. So, um, but in it are just such nice little pockets which have their own appeal. There's the South Nanaimo University District close to Vancouver Island University, and that sure has changed in the last 20 years I've been in the business, and 30 years since when I was down there as a kid, or actually no, 40 years since I was down there as a kid. I'm forgetting that.
yeah. I mean, there are some very neat areas throughout our Nanaimo and district. I think of Cedar and Chase
Hmm.
River as more rural. Lanceville, same thing. Then you can be, like you say, close to the university. Uh, South Nanaimo has some new developments. You can be in a new property in South Nanaimo with a suite.
Hmm.
Uh, and then again, North Nanaimo, all these different neighborhoods have uniqueness to them and, value depending upon what your needs are. If you want to be close to school, you can live close to school and walk to school. A great city because of the variety of property or product, as we like to call it. And
Yeah.
it is just, we encourage people to kind of come over for a weekend and tour yourself and then tour with us. We'd happily show you some of our favorite spots for coffee or favorite spots for a dinner. I mean,
Yeah.
we've kind of tried them all. So we love
Well,
we
aren't
love
we
to show off our
tour
city.
guides first?
What's that?
We're almost tour guides first, aren't we? Before realtors, and then we get into the dynamics of the market and things like that. But I find myself as giving a bit of a tour around town, and a lot of people coming from historically, we've had people come from Vancouver, we've come from Alberta. Um, you know, there is definitely a migration that I see to our community, as people look in Vancouver and maybe that's a bit too expensive, and then they come here and go, wow, the opportunity to get in for a different value is sure present here.
That's also interesting for local buyers and sellers. I mean, I come across a lot of local people lived here all their life and have never been to the Nanaimo Art Gallery, for example.
Mm,
And so to even introduce them to a new part of the community is fun because they
yeah.
say, "Oh, I used to think that that was like this. Oh, I'm surprised it's changed."
Yeah.
So and they're not even aware of all the new developments, say near the university or, anywhere through the city. So it's fun kind of helping locals rediscover their community, not just in a staycation situation, but even a living situation. So whether you're kind of looking to upsize, downsize, right size, sideways size, it's fun to help them understand the different areas they could potentially find their
Yeah.
next dream property.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I think we'll wrap it up and yeah,
Yeah. Look
see
forward
we
to the
go.
next discussion
Okay,
tomorrow
perfect. I
morning.
hope this all recorded.